What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Block Party. I am Voices of, coming at you with another episode of the Vox Machina review for Season 2. This was episodes 7 through 9. If you haven't watched them, go check them out first and then come back here to get a nerd's perspectives and opinions. Last we left off, the team was fighting against Umbrasil with the Sphinx, and Keyleth was putting together a spell that was going to split them and send them into separate areas so that they could get the next vestige in the Feywild. They do the spell, Umbrasil hits them, and it splits the party, and we are left looking at one side in the Feywild, and we have no idea about the other. So it was split up as Percy, Keyleth, Vex, and Vax, and then the other set was Grog, Scanlan, and Pike. Where this went was pretty cool. The Feywild is such a strange realm, especially in Matt Mercer's world. So seeing it personified into a show was such a cool aspect. The detail to it was amazing. The characters and all of the different types of monsters that they saw was really well done. You really got a sense of how insane this realm was compared to the real world, even though the real world has, 5 dragons that are trying to rule the entire realm. But we start off with Grog and Scanlan and Pike. Right off the bat, Pike had been stabbed in the last episode by Grog using Craven's Edge. After they finally are all settled, Pike starts to heal herself. She's okay. They know that something is up with the sword. Scanlan calls it out completely. He tells Grog, this needs to be done. So Grog takes the Craven's Edge and just starts wailing it against rocks and everything, and essentially breaks it. However, Craven's Edge is a cursed item. So when he breaks it completely, Grog loses all of his strength. Boy looks like he hasn't hit the gym in years, decades maybe. Goes back to as scrawny as can be. He actually teases and he's like, I look like Vax. So that's where we get to with that side. Then when we get into the Feywild, Percy is trying to navigate them through. He read a couple books when he was younger, so he believes he has the best understanding of it. Unfortunately, he really doesn't. So they start meandering around trying to figure out which way they're supposed to go, and they learn very quickly that the Feywild is trying to fight against Vax. They aren't sure necessarily at first. They fight an amalgamation of this, I would say it's like a slime ball, but like a giant slime ball. Vax realizes that it's the matron that they're trying to defeat. They're trying to fight against the matron, the Raven Queen. There's a little bit of character development between Vax and Percy. They haven't really seen eye to eye, especially with the last couple sets of episodes ending and starting with Vex getting killed and Percy somewhat being to blame. It really wasn't, but Vax was kind of not understanding about it. We start to see that in the Fey realm, in the Feywild, they're now searching for the vestige. They come across, I can't remember what type of race this character was, but Garmley essentially starts to guide them through this world, through the realm. And what's insane is they get to a point where he's like, we'll be able to get past this point and we'll be able to get to the vestige. But he's like, ooh, we got to pass through the city. And at first they're like, what the heck? Why is there a city here? It's a whole city. Garmley's like, well, yeah, the city just showed up. And Vex and Vax then pretty much say oh, this is Sigorn. Which Sigorn is where Vex and Vax are from. It is an elven city. And it is somehow in the Feywild. That's their side of episode 7. Now we switch to the other party. The other party is dealing with Grog having no strength. It's kind of a funny little montage with a song that Scanlan and Pike sing, which, fantastic. It was actually very catchy. Grog is pretty much useless. He is a paperweight. We do, however, start to see a little bit of a relationship building between Pike and Scanlan. I looked up a couple of things on Google because I wasn't for certain exactly what happens. So there is some character development behind them that will probably come into play possibly towards the end of this season and maybe into the next season. There is a lot more that needs to be built for these characters and these relationships. There's a lot of relationships between all of them. None of it has come close right now. So there's definitely, in the next coming seasons, which there might be multiple. We might see 2 or 3 more seasons of this, which so amazing, absolutely amazing that this type of show is being adapted and raved like gloriously by reviews. It's great. But we start to see that Grog, then finally Pike and Scanlan get Grog to her great-great-grandpa, Wilhand. So that is everything that happens with episode 7. Episode 7 was pretty solid. It was a lot of traveling, a lot of character development, not a lot of action per se, except for in the Fae realm. Very, very good episode, however. Now we're on to episode 8. Starts off with Vex and Vax going into Sigorn. Garmley is like, hey, see ya. I'll see you guys once you're like past this. I don't want to deal with it. They go in there. They meet a couple of guards. Unfortunately, they were trying to sneak through. They get stuck by a couple of guards and they're like, hey, we're seeking counsel with their dad. And they're like, oh, okay. So then they go, they meet their dad a little bit. Their dad's still just a absolute terrible human being. Well, terrible terrible elven being. Yeah, we're going with that. He's an absolute terrible elven being. They do, however, meet their half-sister, Velora, which I don't know if that has anything else to do with the rest of the plot. I thought it was kind of cool. I think there might be some more to it. We shall see in the coming episodes. Finally, like, talk to them back and forth, blah, blah, blah. Her father and their father, beyond what he wants to do, actually does write them a letter that's like, hey, you can safely go through the city. There won't be any problems. So they're like, sweet. There's a little bit of character development between Vex'ahlia and Percy in this, because Percy gives her a title as lady. Her dad discredits it, and then Percy stands up, and she does adore him for it, because, you know, they're starting to get a little sweet to each other. Just a little bit. As sweet as those two people can get to each other, essentially. Jump cut, they get finally through the city. They get to the bog that they were supposed to get to, and there's supposedly some type of Fae being that is trying to mess with people's heads. Everyone succeeds on their saving throw except for Vex, unfortunately, and she gets roped into this. So she goes into the tree that the vestige is in. All three of them go in there right after her. The being that's in the tree is trying to seduce her. She's like, nah, my heart belongs to someone else. Hint, hint at something coming up, possibly. And there's a pretty cool epic battle between this person that gives off fantasy archer vibes of Vecna. It was a really cool battle. There was a lot of action. And it did happily end with Vex now having control of the bow vestige. I don't remember the name specifically, and I'm not going to butcher the name either because I am not good at doing these names. Sorry. So they get the bow, they get out of there. Garmley finally shows back up and is like, oh, I'm so glad. And they were like, you said you'd never see us again. And Garmley was like, no, that's fine. Garmley snaps his fingers and a portal opens and they're like, what the heck? Okay, so then they go through the portal. And then, this is the craziest part, is that Garmley snaps its fingers again and the slow visage of the Traveler, which was Jester's patron in Campaign 2, is just chilling. Like, what? The fact that they just dropped that randomly, I don't know if that was actually in Campaign 1. That's freaking awesome if it is. But that is the most fantastic thing I've ever seen for a callback, which is actually a call forward. It's a callback into the Campaign 2, which is being animated by Amazon Prime, coming sometime, I believe, at the end of this year. Possibly, maybe the beginning of next year. I don't care. I'm going to watch the crap out of that. Like, if you thought you enjoyed these reviews for Vox Machina, y'all, you don't even know what's coming when it comes to the Mighty 9 reviews. I watched every episode of the Mighty 9, all 145 episodes, because I also watched the wrap-ups. It is fantastic. It is stupendous. I watched the reunions and everything. You will love it. I love Vox, but it has more heart than Vox for me, personally. That is my personal opinion. Don't get at me. I didn't start on Vox Machina. I started on Mighty 9. So I'm very excited for what's coming with that story. We wrap up the Feywild side of episode 8, jumps into episode 8 for the other side. These guys are trying desperately to figure out a way to get Grog his strength back, and they are struggling. Nothing is working. Nothing is going right. And essentially they're like, you know what, we just have to move on and we have to go to get the next set of vestiges at Westrun. So they get to Westrun, and we find out that Grog's uncle, Kevdak, has the vestiges. And he is a mean mamma jamma. So that closes up everything for episode 8. Episode 8 was pretty solid, a lot more action this time, and a lot more character development. I super enjoyed the Traveler. That was stupendous. I'm so happy about that. My jaw dropped completely when the Traveler came in. And I know a lot of people won't understand that call, but you guys, the Traveler is one of the coolest characters in Campaign 2 for so many reasons, and I'm not spoiling an inch of it until we start to get more into it when Campaign 2 comes out. So stay tuned for that. Be excited for it. It's going to be stupendous. Now we get into episode 9, which starts with a flashback of Grog and his uncle Kevdak and the Herd completely demolishing and ripping apart this small town of farmers. They tear through them. It was brutal. I was kind of shook. We see a very young Grog who is ruthless. Absolutely ruthless. Pike's grandpa is getting more into this. We see what exactly happened. Essentially, Grog had went in with this herd to destroy this whole city, whole town, rid it of everything, and kill everyone in it. He finds Pike's grandpa and just thinks that he's the most adorable guy ever. Saves him, and Kevdak beats him to death with the gauntlets in front of the whole herd. Kevdak leaves. Grandpa Wilhand and Pike show up, and Grandpa Wilhand has Pike revive him. That is where their friendship started, which really good to see that. I enjoyed hearing about it from the Campaign 1 early slides, but actually being able to see it in a animation form was so great. I enjoyed it so much. We see Scanlan go into the city because he's trying to save, he's trying to save anybody. He's actually trying to scout so that he can learn more information. He goes in there, finds a whole group of people that they're like, hey, you're gonna save us. That's what you're gonna do. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll do that. We find out more about the deal that Umbrasil has with the herd. We also find out that Thordak is getting antsy because people aren't delivering on their promises for certain things. So that's going to start to build up a little bit more problems. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty because Scanlan starts to lead this group out, and Pike and Grog finally get in there to help. Grog is terrified of his uncle, so he is trying to avoid anything to do with him at all costs. However, at the end, Kevdak calls out anyone who wants to fight him to be the next Thunder Lord, is what they call it. And you see Grog stand his ground in his skinny little body. Just say, you remember me? And that's where we ended it. Another cliffhanger. They love doing it. Frustrates the crap out of me. But next episode's going to be nuts. The next 3 episodes are the finale episodes, and I'm so excited because it's going to get crazy. I don't think that they can actually do anything to, they can't stop the whole Chroma Conclave now. So I don't know what is to come with the end of this episode. But should be pretty interesting, to say the least. Other than that, episode 9, pretty solid. All of the character backstory between Grog and learning more about Pike and Grog's relationship, as well as a little bit of character development for Scanlan too. All fantastically done. The ruthlessness of the herd is immense. You learn very quickly how they're supposed to be. That is all of my opinions and takes when it comes to these last 3 episodes, episodes 7 through 9. Of Vox Machina. If you enjoyed this quick little review here, come back next week because we're doing this consistently over and over again until this season is done. And you better, you remember, I said when Mighty Knight comes out, I might even have those up the night up because I will be watching that when it comes out every single day. But other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. This was Voices of, on behalf of the Block Party. If you have not subscribed, if you have not liked, please do so. Drop a comment. Let me know which one of these 3 sets was your favorite, and we shall get back to our lives. Have a good night and enjoy your weekend.